Howdy everyone, David here with Tabletopping.net. This is the review of the Dungeons & Dragons, the very highly anticipated 5th edition Player's Handbook. And the lead designer for this book over at Wizards of the Coast is Jeremy Crawford, and the beautiful cover art on the cover is by Tyler Jacobson. This book has 320 pages, is broken up by an introduction, 3 parts of the book that have 11 chapters, and 5 appendices. So let's go ahead and let's take a look inside this bad boy. So as you can see right off the bat, the cover is a very high gloss, very sturdy cover. I wish the logo of D&D would have been a little bit better so you could actually see Dungeons and Dragons as a primary focus. But other than that, the cover is beautiful. The art is great. There's a thick card stock inside. The pages are of a very high glossy quality. The art is beautiful all throughout the book. As you can see, this is all new art. Very beautiful. The pages have instead of a solid white type of page, this is sort of like a caramel light brown. And you can see that there's also, boxes that are highlighted also throughout the book. It's a very, very beautifully put together book from one I've looked at, and I've looked at it quite a few times now. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk about each section of the book really quick for you. In case you're on the line, if you've downloaded the basic rules from last month and you're on the fence if you are thinking about buying it or not buying it. So hopefully this review will influence you either, one way or the other. So first off, we're going to talk about the introduction. It's basically just sort of like the other Dungeons and Dragons books do. They have sort of like a little dialogue between the dungeon master and players, which is a good thing to have in every type of player handbook, or other dungeon masters guides and whatnot. Now the first part is broken up into several chapters, and part 1 of the 3 parts is all about creating your character, and this is a huge focus in this book, which it should be because this is the Player's Handbook. Now it takes you basically step by step on creating the character, everything from your race, your class, all of your new personality backgrounds that are added in 5th edition, equipment, and also towards the end there's customizing options as well. So the first part is very well put together, and it talks about rolling your stats and how much EXP that you need per level. Chapter 2 is all about races. Now the races, there's a multitude of races in this book. There's 4 core races in the basic rules, but in the Player's Handbook you can see that there's so many more, going from the elf. You can see that there's, the half-elf. You can see that there's the halfling. There's the gnome. There's the human, the tiefling, the dragonborn, the half-orc, the halfling. There's just a multitude of these races. And the good thing about this is there's also, like in the basic rules, there's, types of races as well. Like we'll take, for example, we'll have to go to probably the halfling or the gnome. So for the gnome, there's several different types of gnomes. There's the forest gnome, there's also the rock gnome. So not only is there a primary race, but there's also sub-races as well, which is a good thing, and each sub-race will have bonuses to go along with your primary race bonuses as well. Very, very well done job on the races. Now let's go to Chapter 3, which is the classes. Now you can see here that there are quite a few classes. There are a total of, I think there's 11 classes. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 classes. And these classes are the Barbarian, the Bard, the Cleric, the Druid, the Fighter, the Monk, the Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. Now in the basic handbook, there's 4 classes. There's just the basic classes. There's the Fighter, the Cleric, the Thief, and the Wizard. So as you can see in the Player's Handbook, there's so many more. And the good thing that they even go above and beyond in the player's handbook is not only like in the basic rules, there's, take for instance the wizard, there's the evocation wizard. Now in this book, the wizard has a multitude of different types of wizard classes. There's pretty much a school of evocation, conjuration, all of the other classes. There's necromancy. Take for instance, there's also the sorcerer. I believe there's 2 or 3 different types of sorcerers, 3 different types of monks, 3 different types of fighters, 3 different types of rogues. So you get such a variety in classes, and I believe there's a total of 40 total classes with their archetypes, which is an amazing job for a first handbook. So that's the great thing about chapter 3. Now we're going to go ahead and skip through to chapter 4, which chapter 4 is pretty much it's a new thing in 5e, considering that there was nothing really on this on the last public playtest. I kind of dabbled with it a little bit, but now there's all kinds of different personality traits and personality backgrounds. You can see that there's a couple in the basic rules, but there's many more in the player's handbook, and you can see there's beautiful art to go along. And, you know, all of these different backgrounds, they're broken up with your traits. I believe it's the traits, the ideals, and the bonds, and the flaws. And you can, you know, depending on what type of background you want, you can go ahead and get some random rolls there. Very good. So next is chapter 5, and this is pretty much the adventuring gear or equipment. And there's lots of nice art. It also talks about all of the different properties of weapons as well. It explains what versatile means. It explains about reach. And it also, when you go into the equipment part of it, it also tells you what those caltrops do, or you know what poison does, or the healing potion. So it's very well put together, and you can see that there's all kinds of small pieces of art to go along with this, which is just beautiful. Now let's go to chapter 6, which is sort of like the customization part of it. And chapter 6 pretty much has your multi-classing. So if you want to, you know, get your fighter to level 2, and then you want to go to level 1 to get sneak attack for the rogue, then you can do that. And here are the options for multi-classing. And also, it also has your feats here. And the feats are all kinds of different perks that you can get for your character. So you can pretty much forego your ability score improvement and take a feat instead. The basic rules touched on this, but the actual information for the game itself is here in the player's handbook. So that's pretty much basic thing. That's actually the entire character creation. Now part 2 is pretty much playing the game and all of the rules. I noticed that this is pretty much word for word verbatim as in the basic rules. So all of the chapters of combat, exploration, adventuring, combat, that is pretty much the same in the player's handbook. But you know, this does have the art and whatnot. Now section 3 pretty much goes to spellcasting and the rules of magic. And this has a ton more spells that are in the basic rules. I believe there was 110 spells in the basic rules, but in the player's handbook there are literally 50 more pages of spells than the 110 that you get in the basic rules. So the cleric, the druid, the wizard, all of the arcane classes, the hybrids, the paladin, the ranger, the eldritch knight, the arcane trickster rogue, all of these have very nice spell list. And like I was saying, there's 50 more pages of spells in the player's handbook than what you would get in the basic rules. So after all of this magic, and it teaches you all of the different things about components and the requirements to cast a spell, there are the appendices. And the first appendices, which is A, talks about your conditions, which is a good thing. These are all of your conditions. If a lot of these have to do with the major mechanic of the game, which is advantage and disadvantage. So the conditions, pretty much a major mechanic of the game. Part B, this is the part that I really like about it. So if you're playing homegrown rules, and if you're not playing in one of the settings like Eberron or Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or Dragonlance or Nentervale for that matter, you can literally look and find out not only in the settings that I actually mentioned, you can see the entire list of deities, and you can also go to sort of like Celtic lore. Well, not sort of, but you can actually see that there's a huge multitude of deities that are really not even associated with any of the campaign settings that Wizards of the Coast produces. So you can see that there's a section on Celtic deities here, a section on Greek deities, Egyptian deities, and Norse deities. I mean, this is beautiful, and it's so much information. Appendices pretty much talks about the planes and all of the the outer planes and everything else. All of it's really well put together. So I expect that there will be more information on the planes and all of the different planes and probably campaign settings. Now the Appendix D is the creature statistics, and this is not a monster manual at all. So I see you guys are drooling out there, but this is pretty much stuff for summoning, or pretty much like the Necromancer. The wizard has a Necromancer, he can summon a skeleton or a zombie. So the stats for the druid, the morphing for the druid, and the conjuring of pets are pretty much this section here. And there's quite a few. There's probably about 10 pages or so. And the last thing is pretty much a inspirational reading for all of the inspiration that was pretty much used to inspire the book and D&D in general. And then you have a really nice index as well. To me, it's a little bit too small print. Everything has this nice, very nice large text, and then the index there, it's all kind of scrunched together. I think it's probably because they probably started running out of pages. So, but as you can see, there's also a 3-page character sheet is here as well at the very end. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's very well put together. It's very nicely constructed, the spine. The pages are very nice. They're a high gloss. It has sort of like that light caramel brown color. Beautiful art. Lots of new art. A lot of the art I've never really seen. The class layout is great. The races, all of the optional stuff. The only thing is I hope that they put a little bit more optional stuff out with the campaign settings. But other than that, guys, I mean, honestly, this is a beautiful game. And this is a very long time coming for Wizards and Dungeons and Dragons. And I think this is going to be probably one of their very, very successful, if not probably their most successful edition. This is just it's really hitting on all cylinders. I've got quite a few campaigns going of this, and it's good. It's really good. So I totally recommend you guys getting this. If you guys are on the fence, from downloading the basic rules at Wizards of the Coast, if you're on the fence, put the $30 to $50 down, get the book, get all the additional information. It's definitely worth every single penny. I'm also going to be doing more reviews, guys, on the Hoard of the Dragon Queen, also the Monster Manual when it comes out, and the Dungeon Master Guide, and all of the other fine products that Wizards of the Coast will be putting out for D&D 5th edition. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I hope it can help you decide on if you want to get the Player's Handbook and invest into Dungeons and Dragons, or if you just kind of want to hang back and play with the free rules. There's nothing wrong with that as well, but as you can see in the Player's Handbook, guys, there's so much more variety, and I highly recommend getting it. So anyways, my name is David, and I'm with Tabletopping, and I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see you next time. Take it easy.